Well, hello. My name is Dr. Francheska Perepletchikova, and today I have a pleasure of being interviewed. As you all know, those of you who visit my channel regularly, I am the one usually interviewing somebody, all those amazing researchers and who come to talk to us about their adaptations of DBTC and about the experiences. And today, I thought it would be a great opportunity to finish up the year because it's going to be 2 years of my YouTube channel, right? To finish it up with getting to get interviewed, because I think that it would be interesting, at least for some people, to understand how all of this was developed. Why did I get to where I am right now, and what started all of this? And the interviewer for today is going to be our wonderful, beautiful DBT clinician, Dr. Christine Dunkley. She's from DBT, British Isles. And Christine, I have this. This is Christine's book. Okay. Do you see like stains on it? You know why? Because it's on my table at all times. I am using it. I'm consulting with it. Thank you for giving us that book about regulating emotions, the DBT way, and it has so much material in it. This is not to advertise. This is just for people to know that, you know, there's just so much wealth of the material out there, and Christine is the leader in the world of DBT. So please dive into her acumen. Anyway, Christine, thank you so much for being here. And I just want to say that the idea of the interview did not come from me. It came from Christine and some of the trainings that we're organizing. And we decided, hey, why don't we just use it also for my YouTube channel? All right.
Well, I did not want to miss an opportunity to just, first of all, find out a little bit more about you because you are such a character, Francesca. You
I
are
am
such a
scared.
character.
Ask
And
my husband.
also to find out how you got into working with children and then some of your prized insights, the things that you really want everybody to know about. And you will be coming over to British Isles. Well, actually, you're going to be doing online, aren't you? But you're doing a training for us in our time zone so that we can find out all about DBTC. So this is why when you said, come on, I was like, I want to interview you. I want to find out about you. And let's see. So tell me, start by saying, you know, when you do psychology, there's so many choices of where you could work. How did you get attracted to working with children and their parents?
Well, it's always an interesting question about the path. How do people end up where they are, right? And one of the things that we talk in DBT for children is that we have this understanding of, and since we work with children, I use all kind of metaphors, and metaphors are embedded in DBT to begin with, right? The metaphor that I'm using, because they understand computers, I'm using the computer as a way to explain to them how things work. And I say, our brain is a biological computer. For all intended purposes, it is, right? You know, the way it functions with our frontal lobe being the main processor, with, you know, how it gets the information in, having a memory banks and all of this. Now, as any computer, there is hardware and there is software. Hardware is what we come into this world with, right? Our instincts, of course, our reflexes, but most importantly, our talents, our learning differences, our interests, proclivities, right? You know, things that are already pre-programmed, even predispositions to physiological disorders, right? Some people have more problems with losing hair, some people with thyroid issues, some people with joints, whatever it may be, right? Predisposition to psychological disorders, right? Some people are predisposed biologically to be reacting to stress more with fear. Therefore, they may develop much more prone to develop anxieties. Some people may be reacting to stressors with sadness. right? They might be predisposed to depression, some people with anger and so forth, right? All of that is installed. And as soon as that hardware starts to transact with the external environment, it starts to develop software. That's the learning that we sustain during our lifetimes, all the programs that we build. Anytime we think something, anytime we make an interpretation, anytime we make meaning, anytime we do something, that's a program written in our brain of what to do next time in a similar situation, right? So coming back to your question, how did I end up being here where I am? Well, some people have pre-programmed talents that are very easy to see what that is. My daughter, for example, right? Since she was 3, she was already trying to draw. She was just barely using, her fingers, no fine motor skills, but she was, and indeed she became an artist. So it was very easy to see. For me, I had so many interests. Number one, when I come from former Soviet Union, I lived in Republic of Ukraine, that is now a country. But so I do come from former Soviet Union, which also has one of the factors why I decided to be a child psychologist, but we'll get to this later. But back then, I had a luxury and a privilege to actually be an actress. So I was a child actress. I have I actually don't remember exactly, either 13 or 14 movies, episodic roles, some maybe supporting actress, but it was fabulous. It was such an experience. Oh my God. I got to miss school, by the way. And I would go to all of those locations and be with all those famous actors and do all kind of fun things. But what it helped me to do was develop this comfort being in front of the camera, right? This comfort in presenting myself and not being afraid of audiences, because as you can imagine, as camera is on you, there are 200 other people. There are like lights and this and makeup, right? And everybody's looking at you. And all of that, of course, is a huge asset for me to do what I do right now. Present in front of the audiences, having YouTube channel, being very comfortable with myself in front of the big crowd. Now, the other thing, right, is I wanted to be a surgeon, a brain surgeon, right? But the thing is that I recognized early on, one thing that I had from early on somehow built in, I was very honest with myself. And I knew I am not Meryl Streep. I'm not going to be a great actress, okay? So all right, that's fun, but that's not mine. Wanting to be a surgeon, fantastic and wonderful. I don't get physics. I don't get math. I don't get chemistry. So I would probably just not graduate. I also wanted to be a sculptor. Yes, I used to make, wonderful things out of the clay, and I continued to use that for my kids, making Halloween costumes for them and stuff like that. But I was not accepted into the Academy of Arts back in Ukraine because I cannot draw. And you see, it's interesting how we proceed from one thing to another. It almost we have multiple doors open, but somehow doors are closed for us, right? And sometimes we close them ourselves, like with acting, and we still continue to proceed in a particular way, but still use all of those aspects that we learn, the programming, right? That end up the cumulative effect with the qualitative jump of finding your niche, what fits you best. And I think that what I do, being a child clinical psychologist, is indeed fitting me best in what I love to do, because I am so passionate about, I don't work. Yes, I am in sessions with my clients pretty much 12 hours a day. One client comes in, leaves, another one, pretty much like that. On weekends, I do trainings with clinicians, right? And try to write books and do research all in between. So I work a lot, 12, 13 hours a day, but I don't get tired because I'm passionate about it. Right. So I get to do what I love to do. And working with clients is so amazing and wonderful because I get to cry with them. I get to laugh with them. And my son, actually, he's 19, Danny, he also decided to be a psychologist. And of course, he's predetermined, I guess, too, because he's a super sensor. He's a very emotionally sensitive person. He can read other people. Other people really come to him for advice. And also, he took all of my trainings, of course. I've been using all of this on him. And he came to me and he said, Mom, you're sitting home. Yes, after pandemic, I mostly work from home. You're laughing with your clients all day long. You get money for it. I want to do the same thing. And he's also a Capricorn. And he said, Mom, he knows what he wants. You're going to teach me everything. You're going to give me all of your practices, and then you're going to retire. We're like, okay, no problem. So, the progression on how things build on each other is incredible, right? And for me, I found that niche in which I can be passionate about what I do and help people. I'm actually doing something that I can see the changes. I can see how those children that come to me like depressed, anxious, temper tantrums, their poor parents are burnt out, overwhelmed, they don't know what to do, they're so stressed themselves. Because if you think about this transaction between the child who comes in emotionally sensitive and with more needs in how to address that emotional sensitivity, impacts it on the external environment that just doesn't know what to do with it because we don't come with instructions. And emotionally sensitive children, good enough parenting is just simply not good enough. They need super parents. We don't come with knowledge of how to be super parents. So this child is impacting the environment, dysregulating the environment. And the more dysregulated the environment impacts on the child, dysregulating the child. So emotional sensitivity by itself does not mean emotional dysregulation. It's a process, it's a product of this transaction, maladaptive transaction. And through that transaction, we have two products. Emotional dysregulation, behavioral dysregulation, and invalidating environment. Most of the time, it doesn't stop that way. Most of the parents that I see, they're wonderful, caring, good enough parents. They may have other children, they're fine. And this one is climbing walls. What's going on? Because good enough parenting is just not good enough, which dysregulates the environment. So I see those families coming to me like everybody's stressed, and through a lot of work and determination, they can get to the point where everybody can indeed transact in an adaptive way. And that's the biggest reward that I can get out of this. So how did I become a clinical psychologist? So all of that was building on top of each other. So I was able to get learning from multiple sources. And as I said, former Soviet Union, as you can imagine, in the former Soviet Union, there was no such thing as validation. There is not even a word validation in Russian language. It just doesn't exist. We needed to translate it, and now it's validatsiya. It's just validation with Russian accent, pretty much, right? It tells you a lot. If the language does not have a term for a concept, the concept doesn't exist, right? And most of that was based on punishment, screaming, yelling, criticism, judgment, blaming, shaming, downward comparisons. And our parents were not doing that because they didn't like us or didn't love us or were trying to do something that wasn't good to us. No, with best intentions in mind. They were also parented this way. Parenting is the model, is the program that you're building in your child's mind of how your child is going to parent their children, right? So they just didn't know better. And I did not like it much, right? And from even early childhood, I never held it against anybody, like in my family when they were doing it, because I knew that they were doing it with best intentions in mind. And I was not a very good kid. I was very stubborn. I continue to be, my way or highway. However, I'm not rigid. You can definitely change my mind. If you give me enough of the argument, I will absolutely listen and I will change the way I think. But unless you do that, and unless you're convincing enough, you can kill me, I ain't gonna budge, you know. So being a child in former Soviet Union with these type of a characteristics born with was not very conducive to mellow childhood. So as a kid, I was like, this probably, there are other ways. There must be other ways. I understand why, but there must be other ways. And that kind of like stuck in me. And as I was progressing and becoming like an adolescent, and luckily, another very important piece to that, I decided to become a teacher of English language and literature because I loved children. I always loved children. So I wanted to be with children. There was no such thing as the field of psychology.
Okay.
Only psychiatry, right? So I could not become a psychologist, but I wanted to work with children. And because of that, I came to America when I immigrated right before former Soviet Union collapsed in 1991. I came equipped with language, right? So that was another huge piece. And then when I came here, I was like, all right, I'm going into psychology now. And that's how I started to get into the field, into the passion that I actually ended up doing. And another huge piece to that was my mentors. So I had a privilege, a luck, and immense opportunity to have Ellen Kasdan, who is, an Einstein of the field of child psychology. Before him, there was no such field in America, at least. So he introduced child psychology to the field. And he's a behaviorist. So I had a huge behavioral background because of that. So he was my mentor when I was in Yale receiving my Ph.D. So all of those were steps. And in Yale, when I was reading my Ph.D., there was another person who became my mentor after when I was doing my internship. Seth Axelrod was, I had a privilege of Seth also being my mentor when I was an intern, and we continued to collaborate for many, many years afterwards until, unfortunately, he passed away. But he was the one who came to give a lecture at Yale for one of the seminars, and he talked about DBT. And I was like, wait a second. Dialectics. I know that word. You know how I know that word? That's the only thing that I retained from learning the writings of Marx and Engels that I had to. Back in Soviet Union, you had to read Lenin and Engels, right? And Engels, taking from Hegel, right? He introduced the notion of the dialectics and the three principles of dialectics. And I remember that. That was probably the only thing I remembered from him. I was like, yeah, that actually makes sense for me, given my background. And that juxtaposition, seeing both sides, I was like, oh my God, that totally fits. What are they doing with that? They're doing it for adults. Oh, wow. And they can treat this and that with this. And they're doing it for adolescents. Why nobody's doing it for children? Why can't I do it for children? And that's how DBTC was born.
And this is so forward thinking, because everyone would say, oh, no, you can't do it with the children. They're too small. And even with adolescents, oh, you can't do it until they're over a certain age. But you were just ready to do it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, as I learned and developed and adapted Marshall Linehan's model, and of course, taking into account DBTA, right, and Rathas and Miller, approaches, and thinking about it, right now, what it says DBT for children, but DBT for children is not for children. DBT for children is a model because it's parents' first approach. It's not about the child. And when I say the child, I don't mean an 8-year-old. I mean you're 80 and your child is 60. I mean you are just considering starting a family. And any child can benefit from superparenting, right? We need to get a license to fish, but for some reason, we don't need to be educated on how to parent. Everybody thinks that they're going to be a wonderful parent. And when I ask them, like, where's it coming from? How were you parented? Like 99% of the time I get, well, my parents made some mistakes. Well, actually a lot of mistakes. Oh, like, all right, so where are you going to get the knowledge to do something different? And they say, well, I will do everything opposite to what my parents did. To which I say, well,
pendulum swing of the dialectic.
Yes, exactly. Number one, exactly. But the thing is that it's not humanly possible because your parents wrote programs in your mind on what to do. A child who's being physically punished by a parent, right, is not laying down, right, crying and thinking, oh, what a wonderful parenting technique to teach me discipline, right? He's probably thinking, I will never ever do this to my children. And then what happens when they have their own children? They do the same. This is the foundation for transgenerational transmission of violence, right? We teach our children on our own model on how to parent their children. So I say, okay, let's say that you're superhuman and you indeed can do everything opposite to how your parents parented you. You know what not to do. Do you know what to do instead? Do you have a capacity to do it, right? So I think that it's very, very important to teach parenting in high school. My biggest, like, where I actually want to be when I finally retire, probably at the age of 120. I cannot imagine myself retiring. When I'm pretty much just rolled out of session and I can no longer do any of that. Where I actually want to be, what I actually want to achieve is this. I want to start when they're little. Elementary school, teaching them how to give to myself, how to self-reinforce, how to self-validate, how to self-control, how to self-love, all the things that we call in DBT for children. Bake your own bread. Give, attend to your own needs instead of relying on other people. Love me, reinforce me, validate me, right? Take. No, it's important for other people to give to us. But if that's the only thing that we're relying upon, and our needs can only be satisfied by other people giving to us, and that's how we program. Who do you know that taught their child how to self-reinforce? Audience. Do you know anybody? Simplest ingredient of bread baking, self-reinforce. Just say, great job, me, right? I'm not even talking about the caveat of that is not just great job, me on what you did, not what you got. Outcomes don't belong to us, right? We can only be happy or unhappy about outcomes. What belongs to us, what we contributed. You may have a negative outcome and still say, great job, me. I faced the problem. I did not run away. I did my best. I learned from it. Great job, me. And then self-validate and not getting what you want. Of course, I'm upset because, right? So we don't teach our children, but we teach our children how to be self-deprecating, self-critical, self-punishing, and rely on other people to validate, reinforce, support, whatever. And when other people don't give it to us, don't satisfy our needs, and that's the only source that we know to satisfy our needs, what's going to happen? We're going to take it by force. We're going to scream, yell, threaten, temper tantrums, suicidal ideation, self-harm, as sometimes means to threaten other people to give us, like, squeeze out, right? So we need to give to ourselves first. We need to bake our own bread. And then when other people give us, excellent, fantastic. But when they don't, we have our own bread. We're not hungry. We are fine, right? And only then we can give to others. Because the foundation of healthy belonging, maintaining healthy relationships is about what? Giving to other people. But first you need to have something to give. If everything is like ripped out from others, have nothing to give. That's why teaching children just social skills is not going to do much, because they don't have a capacity to use them consistently. They first need to give to others, right? But to give to others, they need to give to themselves. So elementary school, how to bake your own bread, giving to yourself.
Francheska, I love it. I absolutely love it. I just love it.
I'm so glad.
It's so intuitive. It's so intuitive.
I know. We know all of this. Christine, I'm going to, go an offshoot. We know all of this. We know all of this. We'll talk about other things such as core problem analysis, I guess, because it's part of DBTC. Everything that I talked about, we know. Our mental space is like an iceberg. Tip of the iceberg, our conscious awareness, below the waterline, the 90% of what actually, it's basic psychology. 90% of our reactions come from unconscious processes, right? Below the waterline of that iceberg, where our hardware lives, where our software lives, where all those programs are governing our behaviors, but we have no idea why. Why did I do what I do, right? And then, Albert Einstein said that it's a definition of insanity, doing the same thing, expecting different result. Albert Einstein was a great physicist, a genius, but he did not understand psychology. It's not a definition of insanity because there is a reason. Insanity means no reason, right? There is a reason, there is a function. Something is governing it, right? Which is not conscious yet. So below the waterline of that iceberg lays all of the knowledge, what you say intuitive. When I start talking about all of this to people, they say, I kind of knew that. Of course you did. You knew all of that. I'm just making it.
We knew it, but we just didn't do
Exactly. Yeah, I'm just making that information conscious. That's it, right? So coming back, elementary school, bake your own bread. Teach children how to give to themselves. Then on foundation of that, middle school. Now you can learn social skills and use them effectively. And learning what to do, knowing what to do is necessary, not sufficient. You also need to have a capacity to use it. And capacity to use it comes from, I have my own, now I can give, right? And high school, how to become a parent. That's where I think I'm going to end up my career with, actually building that. Yes.
That's amazing. I want to ask, because other people are going to be thinking this, like, you didn't get to bake your own bread when you were in elementary school. Is there a cutoff? Is it like too late? Or is it what you said, you know, if your mum is 80 and you're 60, you can still learn it?
No, absolutely. Of course you can learn it. That's what I'm teaching. That's what I'm teaching. And this is why it's so important. And that's why DBTC is a model that can be applicable to everybody. If you're 90 and your child is 70, you still need to know how to form a healthy relationship with your kid, how to validate your kid, how not harmfully invalidate your kid, right? By criticism, judgment, shaming, blaming, right? How to be the parent to which your child actually wants to go to without fear of being, you know, yelled at or punished or whatever, right? So all of that is very, very important. And it's a model where it can be used before you even have children, because you're going to be learning how to improve relationship with yourself. Because one of the biggest part of DBTC is what's called a core problem analysis that actually gives people the capacity to use all of those wonderful skills, all of those cognitive restructuring and emotion validation, emotion regulation and validation, all of those things. This is knowing what to do, but you need to have a capacity to do it, right? So
you have added this on, the CPA, the core problem analysis, you've added this on. So tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, I'll get to it. But before that, let me just finish up about that being a model, right? So that can be used before you have children, just for yourself, with your child, all the way until, you know, you're pretty much 90, right? Or 100, whatever it is, right? So the younger the child, the more of the parents present. The older the child, the less influence you have in your children, the less of the parent present, but you're still present, because you as a parent forever and ever is a protector. You're a protector, right? You're supposed to be a protector. Who else is there to protect us, right? Our partners, our friends, come on, right? So our children are supposed to protect, right? And our sense of safety requires protection, right? And parents always need to be there protecting, right? To be a protector, you need to know what to do. You need to have a capacity to do it. You cannot be afraid of your child, meaning no accommodation. And you cannot make your child afraid of you, harmful, traumatic invalidation, right? Otherwise, you'll not be able to protect. And this is what we're teaching, right? And all of that is teaching about what to do. And then CPA is the capacity to do it, right? Now, it can be applied to pretty much virtually transdiagnostic. Why? Because now I'm talking about CPA, right? CPA can be applied transdiagnostic because CPA, core problem analysis, is about identification of functions of the behavior. That's all. Why the person, what are the cognitions that are driving this behavior? Because our feelings and our actions are products of thoughts. We all know that. Colloquially, it's called, I just changed my mind, right? And then everything changes. However, what that means usually is something happened, circumstances changed, my mood changed, and that resulted in a change in the way I think. Yes, that can happen too, but that's passive cognitive restructuring. What we are talking about here in CPA in particular is nothing changed. Situation is just as bad. I am feeling awful, and I am deciding to change the way I think myself. Now, that is cognitive restructuring, right? Myself, I'm deciding, right? Now, and what CPA does, in order for you to restructure the way you think, you first need to understand what is it that you're thinking, right? Most of the time, we just make interpretation, and it's built in our software as a program, and we proceed, right? People come to me, 20 years of depression. Why? I feel worthless. And I ask them a seemingly easy question. What is worthless? You know what I get? I don't know, right? Yes, you do know it. It's just not conscious. Make it conscious, right? And what CPA does, it gets from the below level awareness to the level of awareness within the specific mechanism of how it's done, okay? And once it's on a level of awareness, oh, that's why I do it. By the way, it's very validating at the end. It may be very irreverent in the process because I'm asking a question, why? And it's validating in the outcome. Oh, that's why. Validation is I get it, right? But now, level of awareness, you get a freedom of choice. Before you had no freedom of choice, you didn't know what it was. How can you have a freedom of choice from a program that you don't even know it exists, right? And now you have a freedom of choice to say no and override it, opposite action, right? So all of that is connected. Anyway, so anybody can do this. Everybody needs this. Why? Because every human being sustained relational trauma, complex trauma. Why? Because we were all harmfully invalidated. And unfortunately, some of us were traumatically invalidated, but that would be more of a PTSD, like sexual, emotional, physical abuse, right? But harmful invalidation? Absolutely. Criticism, judgment, shaming, blaming, we all sustain that. And all of that is damaging relationship with self, correct? So we all need to repair our relationship. So CPA in particular is a part of DBTC, transdiagnostic, because every dysfunction has a function, and which is what we're doing is identifying it, right? Also, it's virtually not about any age. It's the youngest child that I taught how to connect to their self-love, just experience, feel it, right? How to not just think about it, right? Or have like an idea about it, actually experience their self-love at will. No requirements, no conditions, just because. 4 years old. The youngest child with whom successfully CPA analysis was, CPA analysis consists of just three questions. What does it mean? Why do you need it? Why is it a problem for you? That's it. 3 questions, right? The youngest child with whom it was successfully done was a 5-year-old autistic boy with school refusal. I know, it's virtually for everybody. And of course, parents need to do it to repair their relationship with themselves, to be able to give to their children and be able to actually do what they need to do with parenting an emotionally sensitive child who's also behaviorally dysregulated or emotionally dysregulated. So it's for child, it's for parent, it's for people with and without psychiatric conditions, doesn't matter, because we all need it. So DBTC is a model that can be applicable throughout the ages for anybody who has children. And CPA is a model that is applicable for everybody.
Amazing.
And it can be incorporated in standard DBT, CBT, schema therapy, doesn't really matter, because it's an analysis of function. And we all, like Marcia would say, right? 90% of therapeutic mistakes come from failure to assess. Assess what? Function, why the person is doing what they're doing, so we can closely match the intervention by the function of the behavior, not by the behavior, because every behavior is multifunctional. Like let's take self-harm, right? What are just the tip of the icebergs of the functions? Coping skills, right? Are to address the function of coping, maladaptive coping, right? People who are emotionally sensitive have a different brain. For them, when they cut, it's dampening effect on their brain, right? So giving them coping skills makes all the sense, because it's matching intervention by the function of self-harm. But what if the function of self-harm is to make you miserable? You're my parent. You did not give me what I want. and I'm going to self-harm because I know that that makes you miserable. Retaliation. I'm not going to use skills because it goes against the function. What if the function of my behavior to actually belong to a group of other teens who are cutting? I'm not going to do skills. What if it's to punish myself? I'm not going to do skills, right? So we can't just blindly apply tools and then blame our clients for not having enough motivation because they're not giving consistent performance. Of course, they're not going to consistently use it because the same behavior has multiple functions, and you need to know as many as possible. And for each function, there will be a different intervention, right? Mm-hmm. But what happens is client is learning skills and then comes to you, intermittent performance, right? Not consistent. And then what do we say? Not enough motivation. You need to learn more skills. Mm-hmm. And then what? Client burnout, therapist burnout. Mm-hmm. And back to Marsha. That's why she said 90% of therapeutic mistakes come from failure to assess. And when she was in a bad mood, she would say 100% of therapeutic mistakes come from failure to assess. So that's what one of the tools that we can use to assess the function is CPA, because it's not just assessment of functions that we know of. Like chain analysis is assessment of functions of what we know of, right? So it's like taking what's already on the level of the awareness of what happened and what the person remembers, and chain analysis takes that information and just puts it in particular sequence of what led to what, right? But this is horizontal, so to speak, right? What happened? And from that, you can understand functions, of course, right? Oh, I did it to whatever, retaliate, right? Yes. CPA is vertical. Why? It goes into the below the waterline of the iceberg into the material that's not yet on the level of awareness to get it up, level of consciousness. And then you're like, that's why now you have a freedom of choice. Because what happens is this: we don't understand that other people produce sounds and produce actions. That's it. Then we interpret those sounds and actions in a particular way. And then we provoke ourselves with those interpretations. Nobody can provoke you. You provoke yourself, right? I say, you're so stupid to 5 people. One person punches me in the face. Another one laughs in my face. The other one just shrugs their shoulders. The fourth one walks away. Why? 5 people, 5 different reactions, the same stimulus. Why? Because 5 different interpretations. This is what CPA is about. What is your idiosyncratic understanding of the world? This is what I'm after. So CPA is very much idiosyncratic. It's not about shared meanings. Shared meanings are very important. Like we cannot go without shared meanings if we want to validate, for example, right? We need to have a shared meaning. Mm-hmm. And of course, we need to use it and everything, but there's like place for everything. But we also need to understand what that person's world is about, them, themselves. And that's why, by the way, I work with a team of wonderful clinicians and researchers that are applying DBTC specifically to autistic children and their families. That's the 5-year-old came from, was not even my client, right? And they're saying, number one, DBTC was developed for autism, right? For autistic children. It was just developed for them, okay? And CPA in particular. Why? Because it's about them. It's about their world. Instead of trying to help them use skills to better fit into the world of people who are neurotypical. You see what I mean? Right? And it's still necessary. Absolutely. They still need to live in the neurotypical world. Absolutely. But CPA in particular is so idiosyncratic, right? And that fits with them understanding themselves without being shamed, blamed, and saying like there's something wrong with it, right? And you need to change that, whatever. Yeah. So when we're talking about the utility of this, right? This is about understanding that you can change your world if you change the way you think. Because again, feelings and behaviors are products of thoughts. It's even in the Bible. Do you know Bible, Christine? I'm going to test it. Okay. But Bible comes from the information field, right? So all of that. So we know everything that I'm saying. I'm just making it conscious. Okay. What did Bible say came first?
the word, wasn't it?
You were the first person in of me asking that, unless they are actually, priests or, who actually know. But oh my God, I'm so impressed. Yes. First came the word, and that is an incorrect translation. I actually, researched that. First came the thought, because words come from thoughts, right? So it was just an indirect translation. So first comes the thought, be that in divine creation or be that in whatever world we create by ourselves. So change your laws of physics in your mental space by changing the way you think, and you're going to change everything. But for you to do that, you first need to understand, what are your laws of physics? What is governing your behavior? What are your interpretations? What are your meanings? And only then you can change them. And that's what CPA is all about. It's making unconscious conscious, so we can actually use cognitive restructuring.
Fantastic. I mean, I can see how anybody who can get to this course is just going to get a wealth of insights, no matter whether they work with adolescents or adults. If they can get to that course, they can see the whole chain working through, can't they, from childhood through to adulthood, and how it all fits together.
Absolutely.
I mean, it sounds absolutely fascinating. Just one more question I want to ask about this, because you've referred to super parents. And I know that colloquially, we all think super parents means perfect parents, but I get the feeling that that's not what you mean.
Yes. So there's no such thing as perfect. It just doesn't exist. Perfect is an attachment to outcome. Okay. So super parent first came super sensor. Right? So who is a super sensor? Super sensor is a person who is emotionally sensitive, right? So they experience emotions on a very high level, which brings challenges to it, because they get easily overwhelmed by seemingly little things. Somebody did not look at me right? When they get triggered, they go 0 to 100 in a split second, slow return to baseline, emotional tsunamis, right? Two sides to everything. This is the challenges. What are the wonderful, beautiful gifts of emotional sensitivity? Number one, they are able to experience positive emotions on a very high level, unless they are old enough to become emotion phobic, right? Because they just don't want to experience any emotions, right? Because it can be destabilizing, right? So, but as children, they can be so happy they become silly, right? Also, they are human X-rays. Like working with adults, adolescents, with borderline personality disorder, for example, right? We all know as clinicians, they read you like a page, right? Because they're all super sensors. Super sensors means that you have this emotional apparatus inside of you that somehow not only allows you to experience your emotions on a high level, but also sense other people's emotions, right? They're very good at registering without even awareness, right? Or understanding it, and understanding that other people cannot do this necessarily, the minute changes in how the person is talking and walking and squinting of the eyes, and all of that is immediately processed. They may misinterpret what they are reading, but they are reading, right? So they're human X-rays. Also, in between outbursts, they are some of the most compassionate, some of the most understanding and caring individuals, because they know what pain is and they can sense it in other people. Therefore, this inborn benevolence, we all have this inborn benevolence. We'll talk about it in a moment. We all have it. Otherwise, without it, we'll not be able to exist in groups, right? So it was pre-programmed in our hardware. This inborn benevolence, they're closer to it because of their sensitivity, right? And so it comes natural from them wanting to be there for other people, being compassionate for them. And emotional sensitivity is also linked to creativity, right? So they're very creative. A lot of them are, drawing and singing and dancing, have mathematical capacities, they just think outside the box so easily. Creativity can come in different forms, right? So these are all super sensors. Not all super sensors are emotionally dysregulated. No, emotional, just being a super sensor does not mean you have an issue. The issue comes from Supersensor, environment that cannot meet the needs. And that's how emotional dysregulation and behavioral dysregulation develops. So supersensors need parents who understand all of this, who will know how to navigate, who will know how to approach, how to give them what they need without, imagine those children kind of like almost having no skin, right? And if you hold them a little bit too tight, you bruise them. So you need to be, you need to know how to hold your child without bruising it. A child who is more resilient, right? You can like take him, right? So talk about like ducks in the water, right? So resilient children are like ducks in the water. Like most things just roll down their feathers. Our supersensors, forget ducks, they're rocks. They immediately drown. And what we're trying to get them to be is ability to paddle. Not necessarily everything rolls down my feathers. I'm always going to be emotionally sensitive, but I'm no longer thinking. I'm paddling along, right? So that's exactly where they get. And then the super parent, it means that super sensors need super skills to get their super abilities, all the benefits, to benefit from them. So what we're here to do is not to make that child not emotionally sensitive. No, emotional sensitivity is not something to correct. It's something that's wonderful, right? What we're here to do is give those children emotion regulation muscles, right? Distress tolerant muscles, mindfulness muscles, cognitive restructuring muscles, so that they can do this to the tsunami, right? Like I can withstand the force. And they need super parents who will know all of that to become the protectors that they need. Another metaphor that I use is imagine that emotional, dysregulation and behavioral dysregulation is like a broken arm, right? So you can only hold something in it that has any weight, maybe for a little bit and not that much weight, right? So before you can actually exert pressure, you need to heal the bone, right? And only that. So what are super parents? Cast. Environment is a cast that allows that bone to heal. But we don't wait for the bone to heal. What we're saying is that child who's emotionally sensitive and dysregulated, supposed to, by us teaching them the skill of breathe instead, somehow do it when they're emotionally dysregulated. Seriously? And if they don't do it, we say what? No, not enough motivation? Seriously? No, not enough capacity, right? So, and there are just so many more elements to it, but parents, super parents, are like this cast. And that cast need to be sturdy. It cannot just sometimes apply, sometimes remove. It cannot be like wiggly. Parents need to know what to do, how to do, when to do, when not to do, and have a capacity to do all of this. That's why corporal analysis is for parents, for children, for everybody, because it's about capacity. Because you first need to heal the relationship with yourself to be able to give to your children, especially given all the other needs that they have due to them being born emotionally sensitive. Yes. So it's not about action, it's about knowledge and capacity. It's like an Olympic athlete. Olympic athlete is not there expecting that they're going to win every Olympic, games. No, right? Sometimes they win, sometimes they lose. But what they do all the time, they consistently train. That's what it is. They just train. Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah.
Amazing.
And no attachment to outcome, right?
Yeah, this is the Zen, isn't it? It's relentless pursuit of problem solving with non-attachment to outcome. That's the Zen. And I think that there's so much that you've given me in a very short time about what's going to be on this course, and people need to come on the course.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And I am starting to develop a training, just CPA outside of DBTC for anybody who wants to come and take it, DBT, standard model clinicians, CBT clinicians, whoever, parents, adolescents, adults without any kind of, mental health issues, doesn't matter. You want to improve your relationship with yourself. You want to be able to give to yourself, to give to other people. Here you go. There is a tool.
Amazing. Francesca, you are such a force of nature, honestly.
I
I
am.
don't know
I am.
all the things that had to happen to make you you.
Well,
And
Christine,
it's
I'm
just
sorry, what
amazing.
you're referring to as a force of nature, you feel the passion that I was talking about, right? This is, yeah, if you like put cables to me, right, I probably will be able to electrify a small village, right? Because that's why I have the capacity to go, 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 because it's not difficult. I'm constantly high. And
You are.
right, because I'm
You're high on life, aren't you? You're
I'm
high on
exactly.
life.
I'm high on that passion and on seeing the results of the work without attachment to outcome. And this is what's driving me. And the people who gave me the most of what I'm talking about were not professors at Yale. We're not, books and stuff. Patience. Patience taught me everything. The only thing is, what was kind of like I was born this way. I'm always looking for patterns. I don't know. That's how it is, right? And I was always function of a form, right? It's very hard for me to do form. Two sides to everything. I'm not very rule abidant, unless I understand that that rule actually has a function behind it. If forget it. So, right, two sides to everything. Right? So how this core problem analysis, for example, came about, as a clinician, I was doing functional analysis with the clients, right? And I was asking questions. What does it mean? Why is it a problem? What does it do for you, right? And no matter where you start, regardless, at the end, it would end in either vulnerability in the sense of self-love and or sense of safety and or sense of belonging. I have not found the third one in 30 years, right? And I saw a pattern like, wait a second. So it was no cold corporal analysis or anything, right? I was just doing functional analysis. So pretty much it did not start top down where like there was a concept. No, concepts and understanding of how this works came later. It's a bottom up. It's pretty much purely empirically derived. Right, exactly. I was like, oh, that's interesting. Three, huh? And that's how it started to develop. Yes. And then I started to figure out, how do you heal those? What do you do with that? And then from all of that, with my clients, working with my clients, we actually figured out you can connect to your self-love. You can feel it.
I feel it. I feel it in what you're saying. I really do. And I think about all the people that you have helped. And I think when you're working with small children and their families, the intergenerational benefits are so huge. The
Amazing.
rollout is so
Absolutely.
huge.
Absolutely. Just
What
like
a lot of people you've
transgenerational
helped.
transmission of violence, right? We can also do transgenerational transmission of love, of care, of validation, of being able to uphold the dialectic. Everything is dialectical, right? Meaning for the audience, everything has two sides, right? Night, day, life, death, good, bad, right? So, and if we want to be effective in life, we need to uphold the dialectical balance, right? And since things are complementary, the same thing has two sides, right? They're happening at the same time. They're not mutually exclusive. Paradox is the only normal law of existence, right? Always, doesn't matter what you touch, one side is going to be stable, another one is going to be flexible. For example, how to solve problems effectively. I need to know what my goal is, as specific as possible. What are my means to my goal? And be skillful in applying my means to my goals. And no attachment to outcome.
Yeah.
Parenting. I love my child just because my child exists unconditionally. I accept everything my child is doing. By definition of acceptance, I don't like it. We don't need to accept what we like, right? I don't like it. I don't want it to happen. And I'm accepting it. Mechanism, validation. And no wiggle room. I said 90 minutes on a computer, not 91. No wiggle room. And I'm taking in information and making my rulings, right? I'm changing whatever I put in terms of the limits based on new information coming in. I'm not being rigid. I'm taking my child's perspective and needs into account, right? Yeah. The same as with relationships. There are two types of relationships that we have. My relationship with me, my relationship with other people, external environment, right? The same thing. My relationship with me, I just am. I'm an entity of human beings, like sun is an entity of stars. Sun cannot be bad for giving me sunburn. or good for giving me light. Sun is sun and it can give me light, or sunburn. It's an and, it's a synthesis. So I just am neither good nor bad, an entity of human beings, and I succeed, fail, people like me, people don't, I win. It's an and, but we are programmed by the information field in which we exist to be one-sided. Everything is conditional. Everything is if-then contingency. I succeed, I'm good. I fail, I'm bad. People like me, I'm good. Misery, right? What we're here to do with CPE in particular, have the person understand all of this, separate and put the two sides where they belong. It's not one big mess, right? Because anything that's one-sided doesn't work, you're stuck, right? So, and what do people do? Instead of separating, instead of learning how to relate to themselves as an entity, how to connect to their self-love at will, how to treat themselves as neither good nor bad, and have a synthesis with I just am, and, right? What they do to decrease fluctuation of life, good, bad, right? What do? They start to artificially reduce the fluctuation. How? Either avoidance of life, running away, or force, trying to force other people, blame other people, attack other people, or attack myself, self-harm, self-punishment, suicidality, all of that stuff, right? So instead of all of that, we need to help them understand just am, how to maintain the stability of this I just am an entity, and then giving them better capacity to actually deal effectively with the fluctuations of life. How, for example, am I supposed to use this wonderful concept of non-attachment to outcome? Fantastic concept. I can understand it. Outcomes don't belong to us because we don't control anything. We don't control life, other people, circumstances, right? Do I control my capacity to go use the bathroom right now? No. As soon as I get up to go use the bathroom, a big meteor crashes on my house. I'm a bunch of molecules. I control nothing. I get up, trip over my cat, and break my head, my leg, whatever. Nature allows me to get to the bathroom most of the time, right? But it's all in my control. What isn't my control, what belongs to me, is an intention. I produced an intention, but I'm just one variable, one. In an infinite number of variables, they need to happen just like that for any outcome, including reaching the bathroom. Okay? One. So outcome is not on me. I can only be happy or unhappy about outcome. What's on me? What I did, my intention, and what I put, right? But how that intention is going to realize, not realize, I don't know. But if we are indeed attached to outcomes, we become rigid. We will lose flexibility, right? And attachment to outcome, by definition, is going to produce what? Disappointment, right? Because life never, ever gives us exactly what we want, how we want, in which sequence of one, with whom we want. It just doesn't happen, right? Like there are two facts about the future, just two. We're all going to die. That's a fact, right? And whatever I'm planning right now is not going to happen this way. Pretty much, right? So if you're attached to the outcome, you're going to be definitely disappointed all the time and then blame yourself for not getting what you want, whatever, right? And I can understand all of this. I can appreciate that concept, but how am I supposed to apply it if my relationship with me depends on it? So for me to even have, the capacity to use the concept, I first need to separate. I just am.
It's a great visual. It's just a great visual. Thank you so much. I just feel like I've learned so much, and it's amazing. I feel so excited to have the course coming up, and I feel there's so much richness in it. And you are such a character, honestly.
I am a character.
Everyone should train directly with you. They really should, because some of that just comes through the screen. It's impossible. It's so contagious. It's impossible not to respond.
People say I'm infectious with my energy and passion, right?
You are, definitely.
Like, Francheska, I keep hearing your voice in my mind, and sometimes they say, because they know what to do and their child is freaking out and they're like, okay, what do I do? Oh, Francheska will say that, right? And a lot of the time they don't want to do what I will tell them. Ignoring and validation. We don't want to validate. what we need to validate, because we need to come back and say, I understand why you screamed at me, because seriously, right? So they say that they have this like arguments in their mind with me, like, Francheska, just shut up, just shut up. Well,
thank
thank
you.
you for giving me the opportunity to tell a little bit about my story, right? This is a very rare privilege, because most of the time I'm sitting in front of the computer hearing about other people's stories. So this
It's a
is a
great
rare
story,
opportunity and a privilege to be interviewed by you, Christine. Thank you.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to this very much.
Me too. Me too. I like to talk and hear myself talk. So, well, all right. Thank you so much, everybody. If you like what you heard, please like and subscribe. If you would like to take courses with me, you have all the information right below this video in description. And I am sure that I'm going to see you next time. Bye.
Bye.